In Canada in the 50s, they did a test, like a national test of all students in all the grades of the lower school to test for ear training. What kind of, it was like a hearing test. It was a computer generated program. It was called the Seashore Test. And they played that for all these school kids, and you filled out these computer cards with a carbon pencil, and if you scored high in the test, meant you had a good spatial relationship of sound, and which meant you were hearing relationships at a good enough level that they thought you had music ability. It was a way for the country to kind of find their artists, which is kind of interesting idea. And I've heard they do this in other countries in Scandinavia as well, that try to find, the artists in the population. So they asked me if I would like to play an instrument, because I scored high on the test, and that kind of started my music journey. I started writing when I was quite young. I was studying clarinet, and I had a teacher whose brother was a very famous Canadian composer. I grew up in Toronto. His name was John Weinswag, and I studied with his brother, and he got me writing harmony and counterpoint. And I guess early influences were the music library. And I found recordings of Nino Rota, Georges Delerue. I paid attention to a lot of early jazz recordings, from the late 50s, and in some film music and in concert music. I wrote a lot as a youngster. When I was quite young, I was writing, but I didn't have a lot of access to other musicians. And I thought that I was writing for small brass groups and woodwinds, small groups, small ensembles, like little chamber groups, and piano. And I was also on the road for years, so I was working with a band. I was writing a lot for the instruments that I had available, but I wanted to write for orchestra. I wanted to write for string orchestra and things like that. And I thought film was a way to do that. It was a way to be in the recording studio. It was a way to work with other musicians. And it was a way to experiment. I was really interested in electronics and tape techniques. And I had a tape recorder as a kid that I would record monics quite young. And that kind of led me to film. I thought that was a good way to experiment with music, be in the recording studio. I loved jazz, so I loved improvisation. And I was listening to artists like Charles Mingus, like Ornette Coleman and Miles Davis. So I thought these were really adventurous musicians. Takemitsu was a brilliant Japanese musician who wrote a lot of electronic music. He wrote orchestral music. He wrote over 90 film scores. So I was always looking for the edge of it, I guess. I was really interested in that, like how far you could go. And I think through improvisation, it kind of led me to want to try things. I like the surprise of working with live musicians, and because you can write every detail into the score as much as you can, but there's still that moment when the performance happens, and that can be really wonderful. I met David in Toronto. He's a few years older than me. He was a kid in my neighborhood that I knew. I mean, I saw David riding his motorcycle when I was 14. He was 17. He had a beautiful Ducati. Italian motorcycle, and he had great leather motorcycle clothes, and I mean, you really noticed him because he would ride around on this bike, and you go, "Who's that? Who's that amazing person?" And then you found out that he made films. He made a lot of 8mm films, and then 16mm films, which I would go see in underground film festivals in Toronto. That would happen, on the weekends, late in the evening kind of thing, at midnight showings and stuff like that. And we had some mutual kind of acquaintances, enough that when I was in my 20s, I approached him to ask if I could work on one of his films as a composer. He had never worked with a composer. He had always used library music for his early films. So it was a new relationship. I had done one film before that, which he knew about. And so he knew I had a little experience, and he kind of took me on. And he said, okay, let's try working together. And the film was The Brood. So that was really the first film I did with David. The techniques I developed for film, I read a lot of books. So I didn't have a mentor who really sat me down and took me through it. I studied composition at Berkeley with John Bavicki, who is a fantastic composer. And so I had the technique of composing at a young age. I wasn't probably particularly that good at it, but I mean, I had some technique to it. And I was then applying the techniques that I had learned about composition to film. And I kind of developed my own methodology of synchronizing and of using live instruments and electronics. And I Miss You, Hugs and Kisses used some of these made-up techniques that I had for the recording studio about how to record it. And I would do things in fragments, and I would loop certain things and play over them. I'd cut things up. I'd reverse tracks. I was really playing with a lot of different ideas compositionally. And then came The Brood. And The Brood, I decided, this was the second film, that I would record it all live. And I didn't use any of the techniques of scanners. It's a live recording. It's 21 strings. It's a string orchestra. And it was recorded quite quickly. I think the sessions were 6 hours. We didn't have the budget. It was kind of guerrilla filmmaking. We were just in there doing things quite quickly. That was the result. That was how that score was created. With The Brood, I mean, I sketched out each scene. You'll see in the score that all the scenes are all sketched out to the film. I mean, I would time them out myself. I would kind of do everything myself. There wasn't any kind of assistance in terms of like music editors or any assistance at all. I would just figure out how to do all these things myself. I'd write a score, I'd hire musicians, I'd go into the recording studio and conduct it and record it. And I don't think even at the time I really was into a lot of editing techniques. I think The Brood is pretty much a live recording for 21 strings. It was recorded in 7 hours. In terms of sketches, I write away from the film a lot. So I'll view the film as you would as an audience member. I just want to watch it and kind of feel like I'm just in the cinema just watching it. And I'm not studying it, I'm just trying to enjoy it, take it in. And then I sketch based on the memory of the film. So I just think about certain scenes or certain relationships or certain colors of the cinematography or the lighting, or whatever I've taken away from it, I usually write to that. And I base the film score essentially on those dreams that I have about the imagery of the film, how it affected me, and here's my ideas of it. And I've done that on pretty much all of the films I've worked on to some degree. some more than others. I think we had a good working relationship on The Brood. And I was delighted that he asked me to do to work on Scanners. I guess he felt that we had worked together well and maybe we could continue. The synthesizer was a Prophet 5. I was recording on a Nakamichi cassette machine, which was kind of maybe a high-end kind of consumer model. So it wasn't even at a pro level. So everything was kind of lo-fi onto different machines, quarter-inch machines, and I would use 4 or 5 of them running at the same time. And then computer techniques that were kind of being developed at Bell Labs and things like the Moog synthesizer and pure electronic music that was created with tape techniques and pure sound. All films have their difficulty. There's always a period of some difficulty. I mean, now as I'm older now, less in a way because I'm more kind of assured of what I can do and what I can achieve and how to do it. But I think at the time, there was always a lot of uncertainty about some of the process. I mean, I'm talking about the technique of Scanners now, but at the time it was you were making it up as you were going. You didn't really always know the result of it. You were on a road of discovery. With David Cronenberg, it's always been like that. It's sort of part of the process of making the movies is to discover them through the process of the collaboration of the filmmakers. So you would study the film, you would study the cinematography, you'd study the editing, the costume design, the acting particularly, the screenplay, the direction, and through the kind of the collaboration of it, you would kind of work your way into that with your work through music. And thinking forward. And it's perfect for David because he's always on to the next and where is film going and what can I say with film? So it's always a forward approach. I think that's the great part of it. You can't repeat yourself because they've known that part of you. Now you have to create something new. And I think that's really the benefit of that, of working together so long. I think David's very knowledgeable about film, the techniques of film. He's incredibly well read, easily one of the smartest people I know. So I think he, through his intellect, brings everybody's intellect up. And he makes you aware of certain subjects you might not have been aware of. And I think that always raises the game. Like Dangerous Method is an interesting film because it brought us into that world in a way that made you a little more perceptive of how music could be used or what that era was like in music. So every film is just a little time capsule of thought and technique. And I think I've developed my technique in composition, orchestration, in the same way he has as a director. So really we've grown up together, if you will, since these early films like The Brood and Scanners, making films. I've learned how to work with a director as a composer, and I think he's learned how to work with a composer as a director. We've kind of developed our own technique, our own shorthand, our intuitive way of thinking about film. It's a very egalitarian type of approach to filmmaking, where he allows everybody to contribute. Maybe it was the 60s type of approach, where everything would be very equal and everybody could contribute their art to making these films, and David would accept it, and he might edit it a little bit, very gently, and that would be the film. And I think he works with actors the way he worked with a composer or worked with the editor. It was just a kind of generosity, really, of spirit to let the ideas flow, see what we could come up with, and then maybe just tweak it a little bit. I mean, the story of The Brood is very personal, as you probably know, to David. And I'm really not sure why things live and breathe a certain way and for how long they do, and the interest that people have in certain works of the past. I mean, The Brood is now almost 40 years old. So it's quite a while. It works on a different kind of level, Scanners, a different kind of cinematic level. It's a little more expansive, but it's probably still quite personal to David. I think that he inherently put something in those films that people are still enjoying and getting something out of.